Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video must be very unexpected for most of you, seeing as how it has nothing to do with my usual content up until this point. For those who haven't seen either of my community posts, I wanted to branch out and try something different for a while, and for many years now, longer than Vars has been around, I've always thought about making Pokemon content because I feel like my video essay and discussion format would be great for Pokemon's long history both within and without the competitive scene. Initially, I was going to make a 4th channel, but felt like it would be too much work to maintain 4 channels at the same time, so I figured a win-win solution would be to condense Pokemon and Smash into Vars 3, making it sort of a Nintendo channel. Don't worry for all of you Smash viewers out there, I'm not quitting Smash content, but I wanted to try something else at the time being, especially since I think most of us are just waiting for the new Smash game at this point. Pokemon's competitive scene has always taken a backseat in favor of the greater casual player base as a whole, but with how massive the franchise is, this fragment of the Pokemon community has steadily grown over time, in both singles and VGC formats. Discussions over the meta and general videos on Pokemon's more quote-unquote hardcore side of things draw tons of player interest, as evident by channels like False Light Gaming, Wolfie, and Moxie Boosted to name a few. So I figured now is as good a time as any to bring my tried and true why no one / why everyone plays videos, and what better way to open up than with a good old starter Pokemon. For the inaugural episode of Why No One Plays for a Pokemon, we'll be discussing Blastoise. As a disclaimer, I'm still trying to figure out whether I want to focus entirely on one format or the other, or if I want to try and actively cover both. But since VGC is technically the official rule set and format established by the Pokemon Company, and it's also the one I personally have more interest in, we'll be covering that for the foreseeable future. As a member of the iconic starter trio of Gen 1, Blastoise is a consummate fan favorite, being head and shoulders above the other two in regards to speedrunning in Pokemon Red and Blue, and being an overall solid starter, well received across the entire fan base in a casual setting. But how well has he performed in competitive play? While Charizard and Venusaur both had their own moments to shine, especially following the advent of Mega Evolution, historically Blastoise has been on the weaker side of things, which is only further deteriorated with each new generation that came after. Conceptually, Blastoise is by and large a jack of all trades, as opposed to Charizard who specs more into offensive stats and speed, and Venusaur with status-inducing setup capability. Though not quite as extensive as the Grass Poison type, Blastoise does have a few noteworthy utility moves in his toolkit that would give out the impression of being valuable in competitive, and those offensive parameters are nothing to write home about, he does have a few strong attacks that can dish out meaningful damage, especially in doubles. So what exactly has been preventing him from finding gainful employment throughout the past few regulations, especially considering he was designed to handle multiple scenarios? The first and foremost problem is the aforementioned jack of all trades playstyle that he has. In a casual playthrough, Blastoise's balanced distribution of stats and array of moves make him a practical choice, given that optimization is not of paramount importance in single player. But in competitive, where optimization is the mantra of every player, Blastoise fails to accomplish anything that has him stand out amongst alternatives. For one, his base stat total implies he's more of a tank than a damage dealer, not unusual on account of the water type in general being known for high durability. At the same time, he's missing the other ancillary components conducive to a tank. Starting with Rain Dish, is it an ability? Rain Dish is almost worthless because Blastoise doesn't have a sustain-oriented build. There are moves like Aqua Ring and Life Dew, but sustain is only practical if you have excessively high HP and bulk, for example Tinglu. Mind you, Tinglu is more of a bruiser than a tank, but in terms of stats, this is the kind of spread you want to have, tons of HP and tons of defense. Alternatively, the Pokemon should have a moveset and ability intentionally spec'd into that playstyle like Guoqian. On top of having great sustain capability with moves like Leech Seed, it has a playstyle more geared towards damage mitigation, a higher special defense stat, and with its ability shredding the attack stat of all Pokemon, its base defense effectively gets increased by 33%. The funny thing is, Guoqian isn't even that good in competitive, so if a Mon who's actually good at walling is not super popular among players, you can only imagine a Mon who's mediocre at walling. Blastoise's durability just doesn't quite measure up to most of the popular walls through competitive Pokemon's history. If he had a more defensive hidden ability like Regenerator, that would be another matter entirely. Moreover, Blastoise doesn't really have any tank-centric utility moves. He has a fair amount of utilities such as Yawn, Fake Out, and Flip Turn, but those are more utility-centric, not for tanking. Adding on to that, Blastoise's move pool is always primarily focused on damage: Muddy Water, Ice Beam, Water Spout, Wave Crash, Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon, Shell Smash, what have you. But due to his attack and special attack being subpar, you don't get much value out of them every turn. The double battle environment of VGC disincentivizes a stalling-oriented win condition because stalling, frustratingly effective as it may be in singles, is inherently inefficient when it comes to turn optimization. That is the whole point of stalling, to grind the pace of the match to a halt, preventing either player from advancing the game state. Stalling is much harder to execute in doubles as a whole since your opponent has 2 Pokemon, 2 turns, and up to 8 potential moves they can use, making it easy for them to focus fire one person down and advance the game state. It's more cumbersome to stall a 2 Pokemon at once. It's also much easier to get bursted in double battles, making gradual restoration like leftovers and dealing moves like Recover, Pollen Puff, etc. not as beneficial as protection like Safety Goggles, Clear Amulet, Covert Cloak, or burst resistance like Citrus Berry, Focus Sash, Assault Vest, and whatnot. As such, the most practical option would be to apply as much pressure as you can and diminishing your opponents whenever possible, or in other words, the best defense is a strong offense. If you look at one of, if not arguably the most popular Pokemon of Regulation G, Rapid Strike Urshifu is very much a damage dealer, having a commanding 130 attack and respectable 97 speed, and a dangerous arsenal of attacking moves like Close Combat and Surging Strikes. Urshifu is much more suited to attacking, while at the same time retaining a fair bit of bulk in HP and defense, allowing him to deal significant damage without getting one-shot. Point for point, Urshifu gets more value out of his turn dealing damage than if Blastoise were to do the same thing. Were Mega Evolution still around, that would address a ladder's problem with offensive pressure or lack thereof. Mega Blastoise's bonus 100 BST points were spec'd almost entirely into special attack, turning him into a strong bulky attacker, especially when including Mega Launcher. Unfortunately though, Mega Evolution is not available in Scarlet and Violet, and even if it was, you would find much better candidates to use that on. For that matter, even attempting a Rain Dance team is ineffective at boosting his pressure because once again, it's not efficient enough. If you want to bring a rain team, you'll need someone else who can set up Drizzle, which already eats up a party slot, and if you're committing that much already, you might as well go for more efficient Pokemon who can take advantage of rain, like once again, Rapid Strike Urshifu, or you would want to bring other Pokemon who can squeeze more value out of rain beyond just stronger moves, Kyogre being one of them. You do have to give up your restricted Pokemon slot, but the payoff is not the worst. He's magnitudes tankier than Blastoise. He is Drizzle, which means you can have a rain setup and a rain abuser in one package. His special attack is among the highest in the game, and he can use Thunder. Pairing him up with Urshifu for stronger water moves, or Tornadus for Bleak Wind Storm, and you have a far better rain user than Blastoise. Even if hypothetically Blastoise had Swift Swim over Rain Dish, what makes Swift Swim potentially dangerous is that it takes an otherwise slow Pokemon who carries a ton of power like Mega Swampert, which I know doesn't exist in this game, but for the sake of argument, and basically neutralizes their main weakness of getting outsped. Even if you speed up Blastoise, he just doesn't have the kill power, unless of course you take Shell Smash on him, but that's a very high risk option without a high enough reward. You can just run someone else with good damage and speed without sacrificing survivability. These factors combine to relegate Blastoise into more of a supportive role, opting for moves like Fake Out, Yawn, Helping Hand, and such. But if you were going to bring a supportive Pokemon, you can do so much better than him. Fake Out's always a plus, but so many other Pokemon can make use of Fake Out a lot better, either because they have more attack power or they can do other things, not the least of which being Incineroar and Rillaboom, who both make use of Fake Out and their respective swap out moves. Yawn is also effective, but if you want someone who can sleep enemies, virtually everyone brings a Moongus. Having moves like Rapid Spin to take out entry hazards is good, but not many players take Stealth Rock and stuff in VGC since battles end very quickly, being 4-on-4 doubles compared to 6-on-6 singles, where switching is also a lot more common. An example of a great water utility Pokemon would be Ogerpun's Wellspring variant. Usually people take Cornerstone, but when deploying Wellspring you get Water Absorb, a far more useful ability than Blastoise's Rain Dish. On top of that, when terastallizing, Ogerpon gets a boost in special defense, giving it fantastic durability in that department. Furthermore, Ogerpon can run attacks like Spiky Shield, Follow Me, Encore and Taunt, and if it wants to attack, Ivy Cudgel and Horn Leech allow it to deal good damage in conjunction with that utility, especially when accounting for its excellent 120 attack and 110 speed. So Ogerpon is also kind of a jack of all trades, but spec'd a bit more into offense and has a better ability and move pool. Another utility Pokemon that's been doing really well right now, who directly competes in Blastoise's niche, is Pelipper. Base stat wise, Pelipper is complete ass, but what it lacks in stats it makes up for with great support. Typing is 1, flying affords a ground immunity, never a bad thing, and it also is a good response against the likes of Urshifu, Calyrex Ice, Incin, Ursaluna, Koraidon, Chiyu, and whatnot. Then there's Drizzle, always good to have when taking rain abusers, and Pelipper himself can run Hurricane. Most importantly, he has a lot of double battle support in his arsenal, chiefly Wide Guard and Tailwind, which can help you deal with a lot of potential threats, bringing me to the final issue affecting Blastoise's viability. The current meta within VGC's Regulation G is very anti-Blastoise at the moment. While there's a fair presence of water types like the ones I mentioned earlier, subsequently there are a lot of Pokemon who can shut down water types. Even though water's only two weaknesses are grass and electric, Blastoise doesn't have a good answer against either of them in this format. He can run Ice Beam and Earthquake, but lacks the raw power to deal with either of them fast enough before they annihilate him, particularly if they're sporting an Assault Vest or any kind of burst resistance, and that's even if they're coming from those types. Two of the most widely used Pokemon in this format are Rillaboom and Raging Bolt, who both carry at least one strong attacking grass and electric move respectively. It's also likely you'll run into an Ogerpon who will either bring Wood Hammer or Horn Leech. Iron Hands is an easy answer to Blastoise. Same applies to Miraidon, who can wipe the floor with him. Heck, if the opponent brings Kyogre, that's also an instant win against Blastoise as well. More than just Pokemon, items and certain moves can also shut him down. It's mostly just one, but with Fake Out being so prolific in this day and age, there's a non-zero chance you'll run into enemy teams with some members holding a Covert Cloak. neutralizing the most important part of his kit. Though yawn can break through anyone holding safety goggles, the fact that it takes a turn to actually induce sleep means most opponents can just U-turn, flip turn, volt switch, parting shot, whatever their way out if they can afford to bring it, or they can protect if they suspect you're going to use it that turn. Miraidon also has the ability to set up electric terrain, disabling any non-airborne Pokemon from getting put to sleep or made drowsy. So essentially, two of Blastoise's most critical moves have near universal counterplay to them. Overall, Blastoise is a jack of all trades, master of none. There's nothing he does that's not overshadowed by a more efficient, more practical alternative. Tons of other Pokemon have either the same utility as him but more damage or durability, or more utility than him. Reasons to use him further diminish by way of the abundance of electric and grass type attacks in the current meta, and the fact that his two main support options can be effortlessly negated. Realistically, there's zero reason to use Blastoise in the current format. Now, would the situation be different if, say, Mega Evolution was reinstated into Pokemon? Let's throw him a hypothetical bone and assume Blastoise is the only one who can Mega Evolve. While Mega Evolution does give him a base stat total on par with, if not outright better than most Pokemon, the aforementioned problems don't really change all that much. True, he does more damage, a lot more damage, but he's still an easy target for the vast number of electric and grass types out there. You can prevent him from taking advantage of his newfound pressure through enemy fakeouts and whatnot. He'll still struggle with getting outsped, and the extra bulk provided to him is counterbalanced by there being two opposing Pokemon who can attack you at once. Blastoise was just never really intended for VGC in the first place. Being a Gen 1 Pokemon, his stats were not min-maxed to hell like modern Pokemon are. In double battles, the two main priorities are to strike first and to prevent your opponent from striking. That's why you run into a lot of Trick Room teams, tons of fakeouts, a couple Tailwind uses here and there. Then the actual beat sticks, Urshifu, Raging Bolt, Calyrex, Fluttermane, Chien-Pao, their main goal is to just kill the opposing lineup while they try and do the same. The thing is, even most of the supportive picks like Incin, Ogerpon, Tornadus, and Rillaboom are non-negligible threats. They can and will kill you if you let them, while other supportive mons are very much above Blastoise in disrupting the opposing team's tempo. In a way, though double battles introduce a lot more options to the game, it also discourages a lot of the potential gimmicks you find in singles. There are more workarounds for situations that most of the time it devolves into a contest of brute strength, and so the path to victory lies in making the most out of your turn. During a typical scenario, you have one Pokemon doing all the DPS and another Pokemon dedicated towards messing around and causing trouble. For instance, if you want to bring Kyogre as a sweeper, he'll most likely be paired up with Incin or Tornadus at the start of a fight. Unless you're up like 4 mons to 2, you'll seldom if ever have both Kyogre and Urshifu on field simultaneously. You can sort of tell if a Pokemon was conceptualized to be easy to pick up and use in a casual setting, and if a Pokemon was clearly meant for more tactical purposes. Blastoise is definitely the former. He was 100% meant for casual play, and I guess Game Freak decided to just keep it that way. Alrighty, that concludes my Why No One Plays episode for Blastoise. I cannot tell you how refreshing it is to talk about a new game. It's one of the reasons I love this series. I can effectively do Why No One / Everyone Plays for any game with a selection of characters. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Blastoise in the comments down below if you think there's anything I forgot to mention. The first couple episodes will mostly be a work in progress while I brush up on things. It's been a while for me. For now though, if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Consider following me on Twitter at Vars and joining my Discord server as well. Links are down below. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode. I'll be putting out a few more in the coming weeks. And again, don't worry Smash fans, I'll still be uploading Smash content. I just want to change of pace for a while. Till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.